everyone here just mentioned Pax.world as one of the ecosystem builders and infrastructure providers for Metaverse, which is, in my understanding, one of the most important questions these days, because you can talk about Metaverse, you can use Metaverse, but if you want to actually build it and incorporate your business of what you do into the Metaverse, it takes an infrastructure provider, it takes a technological solution, and it takes a real ecosystem to do so. So here's Frank Fitzgerald, founder of Pax.world. Please give him a round of applause.
Thanks very much. Hey, I apologize. I was just on a Twitter stream that ran long. I'm Frank Fitzgerald, founder of Pax.world. If you don't know us yet, you will soon. We are currently coming out of stealth this week. Thank you. And by the way, we're not going to talk about us directly. This isn't a sales pitch. We're going to talk about the Metaverse in general. And we have a few people around wearing these nifty t-shirts, and you can go over and see our booth if you're really interested in what we're doing. And I understand I have a difficult slot here right before lunch. So I'm going to try and keep this quick, and maybe we can just do a couple of slides, and I'll show you some videos while I'm talking about other things. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the Metaverse in general. We're not going to define what the Metaverse will be in 2030, because anyone who's going to do that is that same guy that is going to tell you what the stock market's going to be in 2030. Because the answer is right now, we don't know. And what we're doing here as a group is defining that. What we really need to make sure that we're doing at the moment is coming up with the trends, the concepts, and the ideas so that when we're at lunch or at the cocktail hour, we have something to talk about, and maybe I can give you some ideas. So what we're going to talk about is a little bit of the past, the current, and the future of what we're doing with the Metaverse. So I'm going to do a little history in, let's call it, some gaming technologies. So it's really crazy for me to think of the first multiplayer game in history was only 7 years after World War II, 1952, XOX, tic-tac-toe, noughts and crosses, depending on where you're from. And this was cathode tube technology, built on these gigantic machines, but it was the first time that two people could get together, play a game through a computer technology. Now, moving forward, everyone else thinks of things like Pong, when you say, what's the first video game? And that's great, but when we're talking about the Metaverse, I would talk about MUD, or Multi-User Dungeon. This is 1972, and it was a tribute game to Zork, which, if anyone is old like me, actually played these things, where you had to make up the Metaverse in your mind. And you were just reading text, and you were saying, go north, go south, pick up knife, slay dragon, right? What MUD did, though, was it took that, and a bunch of MIT students put it on the ARPANET, right? And they made it into a networked multiplayer game where you could interact with other people, and you could even trade items in certain versions of the open source system, which I thought was really revolutionary at the time. Go next. So moving forward, vector graphics, first games back in the 80s, we all know what happened there, right? It got some people nodding. You got Battlezone that came out, and then you got Tempest, and then of course Star Wars. And that was my favorite back in the day, playing Star Wars. And these were really simple games, but it was the first 3D technology that was actually out there. But for me, when you think about what a coin is in a game, right? Up until 2015, people would think of this. Oh, there was actually a sound effect on that went do-do-do-do-do-do-do, which everyone kind of knows that idea. So Mario Brothers, they weren't the first coin in a video game. but it was what redefined what a coin was in a video game. It was a design with this beautiful spinning gold coin, and it was really interesting just to see the utility of it, from extra lives to being able to access new levels, change your character, but best of all, just brag to your friends that I got more coins than you did, right? And that was the first real utility associated with it. And we're gonna go forward, there you go. Mobile gaming, of course, Nintendo. There we go. Nintendo, Lynx, and Sega Game Gear. But when we're talking about metaverses, we have to talk about some of the more modern games that we're kind of seeing out there at the moment. So we have things like Second Life, The Sims, Minecraft, and now even things like Sandbox and Decentraland and Fortnite. And so when you think about these, the first ones, Second Life, Minecraft, Roblox, they all have utility, their own rule set, and they start coming to the idea of what the metaverse will be. Communities that are coming together. Moving to Decentraland and Sandbox, we're actually getting more into the technology of Web3. But really what they all have in common is they have their own economies, they have ability to go across multiple devices, not just VR. And in Roblox case, they've actually set up a way that developers can really start creating their own content and games. And of course we have us launching now. So let's talk about the metaverse today while we play this video. If I look at the myriad of articles that have come out with the metaverse since Mark Z announced this thing back in September of this year, it gets more confusing than informed when you're reading these articles. So we say, is Pax.world a metaverse, or is it part of the metaverse, right? Is it VR? Is it a game? Is it a meeting space? And the answer is, we don't know. And anyone who tells you otherwise is wrong, right? Because it could be all of these things, it could be none of these things, and every article is contradictory to each other. What we are doing here today is helping define that pathway to what that will be. I don't think there's been many metaverse conferences so far. Anyone attended one other than this? 1, 2, okay, so I missed that one. But what you have to realize is the definition of a metaverse has yet to be out there. When I think about it for myself though, I like to simplify it in a way where we say a metaverse is just a community of people who gather in 3D space. Now, if we take that simple definition, we have to think about that in the real world, which would be cities. So, for example, you got Paris or London or Dubai, and in these areas, they each have their own architecture, their own entertainment systems, their own style, their own currency, and their own forms of entertainment. And when I think about that, I also think about different styles. So I would go to Disneyland or Las Vegas for fun. I would go to Rome or Paris for culture and art. I would go to Zurich, where I'm from, or where I live, for banking, right? And I'd encourage you to think, as you're meeting all these different metaverse projects here this week, is to think of each one as their own city and part of this overall world. Now, we need to connect these cities with transportation and standards and how we can actually bring these groups of worlds together, but keep that in mind. The difficulty today with metaverse products is just the absolute complexity of launching these. So from the way that I look at it is we are in the 1849 in California, the Wild West. Of course, we have the cowboys, and some are good and some are bad. We got the speculators setting up literal mines on the blockchain. And, you know, I look at myself coming from a classical financial background in technology as sort of that guy with the bowler hat that came into town on the wagon and, you know, started setting up the hardware store and the train station way back when. But it's really difficult for me to really see how hard it was to set up a Web3 project today. From your underlying needs of finding good people, making sure that you're dodging the right and wrong people along the way, and it's just been absolutely difficult. And of course, there's no book out there that is how to create a metaverse for dummies. I hope I write one in a couple of years from now. So that brings us to where we want to go tomorrow. And what I see is we have a few major challenges in technology that we need to hurdle before we get there. So first is going to be our mobile data, which was brought up by Mark Zuckerberg the other day. And I agree with him. We have AI, we have blockchain infancy, and then finally hardware. The mobile data side is quite easy. We know where that's going to go. We can predict it 5-10 years out, and it's with even G6 technology that they're already in testing and launched satellites in 2020. But the data that's involved with these things is absolutely gigantic. But we try and keep our worlds even down to something as small as 20 meg. I think the one you're looking at is about 25. What the bigger challenge I see is on artificial intelligence, because we are currently watching artificial intelligence engines go into the metaverse right now. And I'm not sure if in 4 years, 5 years, you'll be able to tell the difference between a bot that you're speaking to or watching a presentation of, or whether that's a real person. Now, we have a bot in our system. It's relatively in its infancy, but you can already walk up to it, speak to it, talk to it, and it responds back. And as I see that technology progressing here, it's going to have huge implications in the workforce. It's going to have huge implications on society, and we really need to be conscious of that. I think the biggest challenge is blockchain infancy. And what do I mean by that? Because everyone here goes, I already have the solution. But the fact of the matter is we're still in the early stages. You know, we're looking at the same time period of the dot-com boom when they were figuring out what a web page was, or in the 1980 console wars, what a video game was. And that was yet to be defined, and that's where we sit. With the blockchain technology, I see all sorts of areas where people are talking about fully decentralized blockchains. And I know there's a couple of people I've spoken here about doing that right now, but consumer demand and where it's at the moment, we're still going to have a centralized system for the foreseeable future. Only because we have too much data, too much information, and the technology's not there on distributing this data in a very fast and efficient manner to a large-scale group of people. The other one is, of course, DAOs and regulation. And so we've done a lot of research just on trying to figure out where we can incorporate a DAO or how we can regulate these things, just so that we can get a sheriff into the Wild West. And currently, right now, there's only one place in the world, as of last week, as to where you can actually do that, and that's in Wyoming, United States. I know, really, who thought Wyoming, United States would be the forefront of blockchain legislation? But I think that's something that you're going to see change real quickly here, and we're in talks with quite a few different places on making sure that you can actually set up the legal structures in order to make sure that people have ramifications on how DAOs are laid out and incorporated. But the last one I want to talk about is hardware technology, because everyone always wonders how we run this on a $300 Chromebook. And we do. And the way we do that is a secret. We're not going to tell you. But many blockchains blockchain and Web3 metaverse systems are actually figuring out ways to solve this in different ways. Whether that's server-side technology, where they're doing server-side rendering, and they're setting it up, but you have huge per-user costs in order to do so. Some are going the blocky route, where you just make sure everything's a square. And then you have guys that are just saying, hey, I don't care. You're going to have a $5,000 graphics card to run this thing. Which one's correct? I don't think any of them are wrong. And only time will actually tell which way the direction is going to go. But right now, if you look at Moore's Law, where CPU and GPU power are doubling every 18 months, I've been told in my career 5 times that that's over. And it's still true today. So if you took that out to 2030, you would quickly find that Ready Player One probably wasn't too far off on their prediction of where they were. Now, I'm not saying that that's what it is, because anyone who tells you where the metaverse will be in 2030, like I started this thing, is full of crap. So just to sum everything up, what I wanted to do is just spark a couple of things for you and say, hey, I need to talk to that guy or this guy about what we're going to do to define this metaverse. And I'm going to leave you with this, because after 5 years building this stuff and building out blockchain technology, 3D environments, companies, and everything else, I wandered around trying to figure out the different social aspects. And I wandered around trying to figure out what's the right way for 2 people to meet in the metaverse. And it was difficult. And it reminds me of R.R. Tolkien, to completely finish this as a geeked out way, where he says, not all that wandered are lost. But thank you very much, guys. Please reach out to anyone here wearing one of these t-shirts if you guys want to learn more about what we're doing, and have a great time and have a great lunch. Thank you very much.